Hello, everyone. This is John Dupuy, and this is a really exciting interview or conversation that we're going to have with Todd Jason. And this is the ongoing Spiritual Technologies 2.0, which in the beginning I thought was kind of nobody's going to do that. And then Pam started pushing me, and all of a sudden it started developing a life of its own. It's turned into this really wonderful thing. So I was wrong. I've never said that in public, but anyway, I have. So we have Javi Otero with us, which is the CTO of iWay Technologies. That's Chief Technical Officer, and he's a musician and a creator of these meditational devices. And he'll be with us and just part of the conversation through all of this. And Todd, let me just say a little about you. I've known you for a number of years now as a friend and colleague. And Todd is one of the co-directors, is that how you'd say, of the Ken Wilber Superhuman Operating System, which is an amazing production, and it ain't as easy as it look. I know you labored over that like Hercules getting it done, but I've had people contact me, and in being in Europe and different places that I travel have come to me and said, you know, how the operating system changed their lives. So, bam, out of the park, you know, really did his job. But most lately, he is the creator of Amplifield. And Todd, maybe you can give us just a brief what we're talking about there, then we can go back and kind of get some of your story, because you are a fascinating person and have done a lot of stuff to lead you to this point.
Yeah, well, thank you, John and Javi, and it's really nice to be here. And obviously, I've known you guys, John and Pam, for several years, and love what iAwake is doing. I'm somebody that started using these brainwave entrainment and binaural beat music tracks to aid and enhance my meditation practice from an early part of my journey when I began to meditate and have spiritual experiences. And so I've really played a lot with these technologies, and where we're at, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this right now, is that technology is really playing a major role in the collective awakening, collective shift, collective tipping point, whatever you want to call it, that really seems to be happening right now on the planet. More than ever, we're seeing an emergence of business-oriented work, products. It's becoming much more mainstream. The practice of mindfulness, is now really a mainstream term. It's been on the cover of Time magazine, twice in the last 2 years. And so it's exciting. It's exciting times, and technology is playing a very critical role in this. So, my background, work-wise, yes, I've been working in this transformational space, as I call it, personal growth space, for about 12, 13 years. I've kind of dedicated my time as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, to doing whatever I can to help human beings wake up, grow up, become the best versions of themselves. And the Ken Wilber course that we did was very much in line with that. I spent about 100 hours interviewing Ken eye to eye, and then we produced this course called the Superhuman OS, which was really a fascinating project. And then out of that, I've now developed a application called the Amplifield, which you mentioned, which to me is a very direct representation of what we're talking about, and very relevant to the name of this conference that you're facilitating, called Spiritual Technologies, Spiritual Tech. That's what it is. It's a spiritual technology that is here to connect us using technology to grow, to wake up, to practice meditation and mindfulness, to accelerate the idea that human beings are becoming conscious of being conscious. Which is one way to frame what's happening right now. So, it's really a pleasure to be here. It makes a lot of sense because we've worked together for many years. I'm a user of iAwake. I'm a user of a lot of different spiritual technologies. I'm creating one of my own right now, which is a very direct encapsulation of what's happening. So just, in general, it's great to be here and to be with you guys. And thank you for asking me to be a part of it.
Great. Thanks, Todd. And let me just say a little bit about my experience with Amplifield. I was invited to direct a guided meditation. We were using a track from our iAwake vault, if you will, and it was amazing. I've been doing this meditation now, using these technologies and similar technology, earlier technologies for over 10 years in a daily practice. And so I'm pretty dialed into subtle energy, and just my interior states and what's going on in my body. But when I was meditating on Amplifield, and when I do, there was about 250 people all over the world. And the cool thing about Amplifield, the world is represented there, and people can put in comments, and it shows, what their intentions are, and it connects people all over. It's really amazing. But the felt sense of meditating was one of the most powerful meditation experiences I've had. Maybe top 10, and I've had a bunch. So very powerful, like just the spirit, the connection, the feel. It just felt like it was just very strong. And I'm really excited about that, because I think there's so much potential in the internet, and to connect us this way is just amazing.
Right.
So I'm
Thank you.
huge fan. And can you talk about what may be going on? I know the science of with prayer, they've showed that it's non-local. In other words, if people are praying for somebody in surgery and blah blah, they've done tests with this and studies, and they find that people coming together and praying actually has an effect, seems to have an appreciable effect on the outcome of different surgeries and procedures and disease. And it doesn't matter if you're in the next room or you're in Japan and the person's in New York, it works the same. So I think there's something related to that, what's going on in the Amplifield, of what I've experienced.
Well, yeah, I mean, just taking a step back and actually honoring the work that iAwake does, and kind of where my own journey started. The sound technologies were really, in my opinion, the first things that have been around, helping people practice spiritual, related things like meditation, mindfulness practice. I'm sure you're going to go a lot in this conference and talk to people about how binaural beats work with the different frequencies in each ear, and the brain kind of synchronizes these different beats, and that produces a state, a brainwave state, a desired brainwave state that can get us, into a certain activity or certain mode, right? And so that's really important to understand the science behind it. And as time is going on, a lot more technologies are evolving. I just recently spent time with an organization that, is measuring the frequencies of the heart intelligence. There's this whole movement of heart rate variability, HRV, and how we can control HRV. And at the same time, there's been a lot of studies that have been around for many years that shows when people are practicing mindfulness or meditation in groups, it actually affects the field around them. The most famous of these studies was produced by the Washington Post, believe it or not. A very mainstream newspaper published a story about 10 years ago that showed that a group of people meditating consistently in one area actually reduced the crime in that area. And that was definitely one of the impetuses, if that's a word, if I can make that plural, of what the Amplifield is. And there's a reason why, just going on that thread, why monks who meditate for a living have been doing this in Sangha, in community, for thousands of years. It amplifies or accelerates the effect. And if you've ever done a meditation retreat where you're in a room with other people for a consistent period of time, you feel the effects of other people dropping into those states. We affect each other. We are all energy sources in our own sense. And when we're dropping into a particular state and we are going for it, we're affected by those around us that are also doing that. It amplifies. And that was the idea, one of the ideas of the Amplifield, the idea that we can use technology to connect a global community of people that are dropping into mindful meditative states together to amplify the effects that we want to have happen. And what do we want to have happen? We're all interested in compassion, love, stopping things like war on this planet, healing, empathy, the highest qualities, the best versions of what we can, create as the human culture. It's very possible right now to do that. And something like the Amplifield and all these spiritual technologies are playing an important role. It's not the only answer, but they're playing a role in terms of creating that very juicy, connective, conscious, high energy field of people that are coming together to create those frequencies of love and compassion and empathy. And as we use technology to connect people more in these qualities, it will have an effect in the greater field. And it's subtle, and it's starting to be recognized by science, right? Science is now coming around, like always tends to happen. There's always spiritual truths that have been around for 2,000 years, and all of a sudden, science then proves that it's true. And we see that, on and on. It always gives, me a little chuckle. I'm like, oh, the Buddha said that 2,500 years ago, but now science is proving it's true. But it's very relevant, because to get this movement mainstream, to get people believing that subtle energy, subtle activism, that meditation and mindfulness in a social context can actually have an effect in the real world is very, very important, and it's happening. This is in this moment in time, these next several years are really going to show that a lot more. I mean, if you look at the news and you actually kind of do a Google alert for these types of terms, you'll see that every day there's more information, more studies, coming about that are showing this. And so it's exciting times. And the Amplifield is a very direct representation of this movement. It's a platform and a series of environments that allows people to connect via meditation and mindfulness. One of the use cases that you mentioned is bringing people together for these kind of global synchronized events, one of which you facilitated, John. And you really feel the power of hundreds or thousands of people in this virtual environment meditating and praying together at the same time. It's a very, very important use case, and one of the main things that we're trying to accomplish with the Amplifield. And at the same time, it's a powerful utility that helps people accelerate their own practice, right? And so that's why we have content like iAwake's tracks on there, that people can come back every day and use it to meditate and know that they're connected to this global community of people that are online and also practicing. But they can use it as their own utility to wake up and grow up. So we're really bridging those two things of kind of connecting people in this global digital sangha, as I've been calling it, and also putting forth a very powerful and usable utility that individuals can just use every day, to accelerate their practice. So that's kind of what we've been up to.
Wow. Javi, do you have anything you'd like to comment on or ask or whatever?
Todd, when I was reading your frequently asked questions, you mentioned that the general room is embedded with the Schumann resonance. There are like a number of ways in which you have various rooms emitting the energies that match the intentions for the rooms. Kind of, you mentioned colors and sacred geometry, numbers. Can you please explain what that is and how do you get it done?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking it. So when we started developing the notion of the Amplifield about a year ago, it became increasingly important to me to kind of take all that was available to us in terms of spiritual wisdom that we could apply into the Amplifield project. So what I mean is something like sacred geometry, is and the golden mean ratio in particular is something that has been around, that we've known about for a long time, which is a particular ratio that emits an aesthetic that human beings are drawn to. And a lot of the Renaissance painters and sculptors, they knew about this golden mean, and actually a lot of the most famous pieces of art of all time have integrated, sacred geometry into, their work, and it makes sense. That humans, we are attracted to certain frequencies, and there's a lot that I can talk about in terms of sacred geometry. But like the design, when we started designing the actual application, our designer is very much adept at working with these ratios. And I said, I'm like, hey, let's input as much of the sacred geometry ratios into the application itself, so that way it gives people the greatest feeling, that it emits the highest frequency, so people can feel more connected, and it's aesthetic, and they love it, and they want to be there. So we did that. So a lot of the ways that the Amplifield app, the technology, and the design is structured has the golden mean ratio and some other sacred geometry signatures embedded in the design. Similarly with sound. And you'll be interviewing Eric Thompson I believe, for this series, and he does some very interesting work with some subtle energies, subtle sound energies that he is able to employ into code itself. And it was important to me to experiment with the Amplifield and almost to have fun with it. And so I contacted Eric, and we were talking, and so he provided some of these sound frequencies that don't have audible sound associated with it. And I'm sure you're going to interview Eric about this. But we embedded these frequencies into the various Amplifield rooms, so that way, again, it would give people the greatest experience of being there and feeling connected and feeling that this is a loving place, a compassionate place. That's kind of the whole point. When we started developing the Amplifield, we really did want to have fun with this. And we wanted to almost use our imagination to create the highest frequency digital field that we possibly could. And so employing sacred geometry, employing some of these subtle energy sound frequencies into the code itself was fun in a way, but it's also serious. It's also experimenting with, can we create a really high energy, a high frequency environment, application that encompasses all that we know, whether it's new agey, scientifically proven or not, but just put it out there. And if it has an effect, great. And if it doesn't, you know what? The idea of the Amplifield itself is good enough that it will still attract people, and people will want to meditate together and practice mindfulness together and share intentions together anyway, because that's without any using some of this subtle energy stuff, it's already a great service. But we wanted to employ as much of that as we could. And so that's why we put that in the application, some of these kind of subtle sound frequencies, some of the sacred geometry components, because we wanted to do everything that we could to create a high vibrancy, a very felt, touchable experience using this kind of 2D technology that we have. You know, we're looking at a computer or a phone. It's still a 2D experience. It's going 3D with virtual reality eventually, and we'll be integrating that too as the technology emerges.
Yeah.
But for right now, we did everything that we could to create just a great experience, you know, a great vibrant experience for human beings, employing some of the stuff that we all know works. So,
yeah. And when you talk about rooms, that means there's different kind of locations or virtual spaces that you can move into that are dealing with particular issues, or what does that mean?
Right. Yeah. Good question. So the Amplifield is the name of this, right? It's not amplified. So if you go to www.amplifield.com, you can see this beta app. And I just want to say that, as you guys know, this is still in a prototype phase. We're building out the next iteration of this application right now, but it's still in a prototype. It's a very good prototype, and there's been about 10,000 people that have signed up over the last 3 or 4 months that are using it. But we're building out a next iteration of it. So the Amplifield is this general term for this application, which is kind of amplifying this field. You know, it's a kind of a cool brand name for what we're doing. We're using our imagination, you know, in the digital realm to, like, you know, say, hey, this is a space where we're really here to meditate, to pray, to practice mindfulness. But the business and how we're rolling this out itself is that there will be different fields within the Amplifield. And the next iteration of the app will actually have several different fields that people can enter into that will have different frequencies associated with them, different use cases. For example, we have a field that we already have on there right now, but we're going to really create a distinguishing aspect to it called the flow field. And so there's this whole notion of people being in flow states, you know, and it's a different type of state where you want to be working, maybe you're writing, maybe we're in a flow state right now being connected together. And so we actually are creating a field within the Amplifield that is dedicated towards flow. And so picture being able to go there and you're online and there's music and sound that are associated with flow states that really help you get into flow states. But you're also connected with other people in that field from all over the world. So there's the community aspect and then there's the content aspect. So you're really giving yourself the best shot to be in a flow state because you have this community-oriented aspect where you're kind of like being supported by other people that also have that same intention. And you have content that you can use, right? So that's a field on the Amplifield. There are other fields that we'll create on the Amplifield. You know, we have a temple field which that will be where we solely have these global synchronized events. So one of the fields is coming together as a global community, and we're already doing that, but we're going to move that over to this temple field, which will be solely dedicated to these synchronizations, and that will be the temple. That will be a particular field. Then there's a mantra field, and the mantra field will have mantras, basically, and you can go into that field, and there'll be a bunch of tracks that have mantras playing like a continuous ohm. So you can actually be in a field, a frequency of a continuous ohm that will be a recording at first, but eventually maybe it'll be like a live ohm, that people can tap into.
Sure.
But that's a field. So the idea that you're seeing...
And Todd, will people be aware of how many people are ohming with them, or meditating with them while they're
Absolutely.
doing this? That's so cool.
Part of the fun of the Amplifield is that you can see how many people are in that field with you. And you'll also have a global field, which is almost like the witness, which you can go click onto the global field, then you can see how many total people are on the Amplifield, right? So, it's the aggregation of all the fields, right? It's kind of like the ultimate witness, the observer state for the totality, which is important, right? Because Edgar Mitchell had that experience when he came back from the moon, right? And he saw the big blue marble spinning in the sky, and he had this massive awakening. Yep. And, we're recreating that too. Like, we want to be able to see this kind of global total, field of what's happening. And that's a field too. So there's all these different fields. Now, eventually, after we kind of launch that, the bigger idea is that people, human beings, will be able to create their own fields, right? So teachers, communities will be able to come on there, create their own field, invite their own audiences, right? Upload their own content, their own audio, their own video, whatever it might be. And they can then, interact and, have experiences and connectivity with their own communities that they facilitate. It's almost like Facebook groups on steroids, right? So you'll be able to really connect with your people and community in a much more visual, connected way.
Cool.
And so these are all fields.
When we were talking with Bill Harris, one of the pioneers of this whole brain entrainment and binaural beat meditation, enhanced meditation, he said that he thought that from his years of, they've done a lot of research on this, that the binaural, the brain entrainment enhances or speeds up the meditation process by about 8 times. And from my experience with the Amplifield, is like, I don't know how many, if you've come up with a number or just a feeling for that, but it definitely feels like another something Amplified. 8 times whatever, several digits,
That's right.
Amplifies the experience. And I live in the middle of nowhere, Utah, and so my meditation practice is pretty solitary most of the time, except for God and the angels. Anyway, it's very, and I'm somewhat of an introvert, so this is a very powerful tool for me, and I really need it.
I mean, in terms of what's the number of we don't know, and maybe that will be part of what the Amplifield is uncovering is, how much does being connected in this way accelerate or amplify our ability to wake up and grow up, right? And so obviously binaural beat music, has a lot of science behind it, 60 years, 70 years of science that they've been studying it. This is new. We all know it's true. We all know that intuitively when we are connected, we give ourselves the best shot at, kind of number one, dealing with our shadow process, right? Number two, kind of growing into, our greatest versions of ourselves in a lot of different ways, emotionally, intelligently, spiritually, physically. So we don't know. I mean, I don't have a number for you. I wish I did. That will be something that I think the Amplifield and other projects like it are starting to tap into in terms of what this actually means, using technology to be connected in this way. How much does it affect us? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think this will be a question
It's going to be really fun, because I've put a lot of hours in meditating, and I was really pro the whole idea of this theoretically. I just knew it was a great idea because I've experienced transmission. I mean, I work with clients and have taught groups and everything, and feel it. Internet connects us in this way, and I just thought this is going to be terrific. And that was my intellectual. I was prepared to like it, but the actual experience was so beyond what my mind had, kind of said it was going to be like. And it'd be very interesting to see what it's like for people who've never meditated, beginning meditators and experienced meditators and masters in the different traditions, and just put all that data together eventually. Really, really exciting stuff. And whoever thunk, in 1992 or three, when the internet started coming, that we began to have this kind of capacity, to reach out and connect. And 250 people blew me away. I couldn't imagine 10,000 or 100,000 people putting this together, or a million, or whatever.
That's where we're headed. It's certainly, what happens when we get a million people meditating and praying together at the same time, towards, let's say, nonviolence. What does that actually have an effect on the greater field? My bet is yes. And this is already happening. Like there is a movement in Thailand recently where they said at least that 1 million school children meditated together. Have all these pictures of, this huge, massive, field of children meditating and praying together. It's happening, and technology is really playing a role. And I have a lot of hope, that these efforts are actually going to contribute to some real changes in the world, right? Like even coming together and praying towards the political realm or the economic realm, right? So we have a big election coming here, next year, and the Amplifield was asked to play a role recently in the big COP21 event, the big climate summit event that happened in Paris. The French Foreign Minister of Energy and Ecology wanted to bring the Amplifield into the room so all the world leaders can see on a big screen how we're connected and practicing meditation and mindfulness together. And we did it. And so hundreds of world leaders saw the Amplifield in Paris just a couple months ago at the COP21 events. There's videos of like the French president walking by and looking at it, and the French Minister of Ecology, this beautiful man, Nicolas Berriot, was the one that wanted this to happen. And he's a government official. And so we're seeing, that the world is waking up, and even politicians, are wanting to integrate mindfulness, meditation, consciousness practice into the world in a very powerful way. And, it's promising.
So, Javi, do you have any comments or questions? Or
while you were telling us all this, I was just imagining schools, for example, doing Amplifield practice, and you would know that from 9 to 9:30 in the morning, many schools are doing that in wherever you are. For example, I'm in Europe, so that would apply to many places here. The question is, when as you develop Amplifield, what's the most exciting thing that you can kind of see ahead that you didn't really plan, when you designed it initially? Are there any amazing surprises? Is there anything, that you're looking forward that it didn't really occur to you, that is like a byproduct of having created this amazing idea?
Yeah, great question. Actually, what I just mentioned with the COP21, the COP21 climate change was a big surprise. I didn't see that coming at all. And to actually have like a government official say, hey, let me bring this, and let's use the Amplifield to add energetic support to these huge initiatives that are being decided on by hundreds of world leaders, and actually put it up on a screen in the conference so that way thousands of people in the Amplifield could be connected in that moment. It was a big surprise. So I can see that continuing in some sense, and I've gotten a lot of continuing interest from that. The UN then contacted us, and they're interested in potentially integrating the API of the globe and what we've done into their internal application. So that's interesting. But actually, what you mentioned just now in schools is really exciting to me. I love the idea, and I've been contacted by a couple of organizations that run mindfulness practice in schools, high schools, and even elementary schools, younger children, that are really trying to integrate consciousness practice for young people. And I really see having a field for school classrooms that they can be connected. And that is actually one of the things that I think will really make a big difference in the world. Because this is, we're in our lives, we're so in our lives, but, human beings have been around for a long time, and we're going to come and go, and this movement is going to come and go, and we don't know what's going to happen in 100, 200 years from now. And the most that we can do to equip our younger people, our children, with tools and practices that can really help bring more peace and love and healing on this planet, the better we're going to be. And so if the Amplifield wants to go the route of really choosing, to facilitate this in schools and for children, then yeah. Now, the one thing that I'll say about the project is that it's a very emergent idea, and the way that I relate to it is not one in which I kind of know exactly where it's going to go. The way that I actually relate to the Amplifield at this point really is that it almost has its own life form, in a sense. It's almost an organism that's alive, and it's informing me in a lot of ways in terms of how it wants to grow, where it wants to go. And my role partly is really to listen, to what's coming, into this field, and to be really wise about how to grow the business, and not to worry so much about the little I, the little self in me that has ideas and things and wants and needs and dreams. While those are valid, the real work for me is just to kind of let go and understand that this idea, this concept, wants to emerge, wants to be birthed, wants to connect people, is here as a positive force. And so that's been surprising too, is that I'm building this business differently than I built other businesses in the past, where I've kind of have this grand plan. And in this case, there is a plan, of course, but it's also very fluid in terms of letting go and watching almost what's coming to us, watching what is kind of coming like into the field is kind of new and a fun way to build a business, and kind of interesting and scary too, because there's a lot of uncertainty, in terms of we don't know. But that's okay. I think that the real leaders, of the next generation are going to be those that live very comfortably in uncertainty, that don't necessarily know for certain what the plan is, and are just kind of like rolling with the emergence of consciousness itself. And so I'm trying to embody that as much as I can. So while it's a great question, the answer is I don't really know where it's going to go. I would love to be talking with you in a year from now and reflecting on 2016. It could go 100 different ways, probably 1,000 different ways. I just don't know where it's going to go. And, there's almost a laughable, like, all right, funness to that I want to kind of hold on to, because as soon as I think I know what it is, I think I lose the game. And I think the Amplifield might not actually grow into the highest version of itself. So kind of really holding the uncertainty is important to us. But yeah, once you go down the rabbit hole with this idea, Javi, and you really start thinking about it, there are so many different ways that this can grow and go. And one of the challenges actually is getting reflections from people that are now advising, investing money, playing, partnering with the Amplifield, and hearing all these incredible ideas that are completely different than what I have about how this can grow and where this can go. And I'm like, whoa, really? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, the collective creativeness.
It's cool. Yeah, it's really cool. So like just kind of staying in that is part of the fun of it.
Hey, I had a question. You came and visited us here at middle of nowhere, Utah, a few months ago, and we got to hang out and go hiking and eat together and meditate, etc. And you were telling your life story, and you're kind of like the Indiana Jones of spiritual questers. I mean, you've done a lot of stuff and been through a lot of practices and gone a lot of places and a lot of pilgrimages or quests. And I was wondering how, and I love the story, the backstory behind these things, but when did this come to you? Was it like just a moment of illumination, or was it something that gradually grew, or how did this idea about Amplifield come into being?
Yeah, great question. And I am not the Indiana Jones. I mean, look, I am one of countless millions of people that are really doing everything they can to improve themselves and to wake up. And
you've worked really hard, and I really honor that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But, it's not, I don't feel as if I'm any different than so many of us that are here, having these conversations and doing this work. So thank you for that. I do want to take it in. But also honoring, that this is much bigger than any one person or even a small group. And the idea was gradual. When I look back on where the impetus came from, 2010, I was on a website called dj.fm, which doesn't exist anymore. It was actually a monumental failure, business failure, because this guy had millions of people on this website. And what it was a site that you could go on there and create your own room and upload your own music and effectively become your own DJ. And you can invite your friends to come into your room and listen to that music. And you can go visit other people's rooms and listen to their music that they're DJing. And I thought to myself, well, I was really into the binaural beat, brainwave entrainment music. I'm like, well, why don't I do that just for kind of spiritual related content? Like to create these rooms and frequencies that people can come into these places and meditate. And that was like, if I had to look back, like that was probably the impetus of the idea. And then I started working with you guys too. I started consulting with you guys, and I told you about this idea probably 3 or 4 years ago. I'm like, I want to build this kind of virtual environment that does this. And you were like, cool. And I've worked with a lot of companies that produce audio spiritual technologies, over the years, because I've been seeding myself with this idea. And then about 2 years ago, I met with some friends of mine. I didn't have the name. And naming is very important, actually. And I did a brainstorm with 2 friends, 2 creative brothers of mine. And the name emerged. Actually, one of my friends, I want to honor him, Shalom, came up with the name, The Amplifield. We did this whole process. And he came to me that night after we were done. He goes, I think I got the name. He's like, Amplifield. I'm like, oh, Amplifield. And then I went online to see if the URLs were available, and they were all available. I'm like, there's no way they're going to be available, but they all were, right? So I bought them all. I was like, oh my God, that's the name. So then getting the name was big, because then I started to understand what this was. Oh, this is the Amplifield. That's what this is. And then that sat for a little while. And then a year ago, I broke my leg, and I was laid up for 4 months, literally without being able to walk. And that's when I started working on this as a business. And the key thing that I'm doing, and the need that I'm seeing in the marketplace, or one of the key ones, is to actually build a scalable technology. I haven't seen a scalable technology that connects us, right? Like, yeah, Facebook, there's all these social media platforms that are massive, that, hold 1 billion people. But to actually build a technology that's scalable, that can hold that many people, that has the story and the intention of connecting people with meditation practice, mindfulness, love, compassion, all these qualities that I keep talking about on this call, to actually build a technology that is just for that can scale, I haven't seen. And so that's what the Amplifield then started to become. And I spent about 3 months just vetting technologies. I'm not a programmer, but actually going into how do you build something like this? Like, what are the technologies? Learning about front end, back end, JavaScript, all these things, that I know a little bit about, but really going in there, getting proposals from major companies, to what they, and then vetting developers to actually build the prototype. That took about 3 months. And then I chose the right person, and then building the prototype. So you can see, like anything else, it's a natural evolution. And the Amplifield, there's others in the field that are doing similar things too, and it's like anything, like in a sense, there's almost no new ideas. It's actually, what my role is actually being able to pick pieces of various things and then create a new whole out of various things that already exist. As one of my mentors always tells me, he's like, look, he goes, you want to find like 7 to 10 things that have 20% of what you love, and then take all the 20% from the 7 to 10 things and create something new. And that's basically what I did, without even knowing it until he gave me that frame. And I said, well, that's what I already did. And I gave him the 10 things, he's like, oh my God, you've already done that. I'm like, well, that's what the Amplifield is. So it's not a new idea. It's taking a bunch of things that already exist in some form, right, putting it together, putting a great name around it, branding it, and then building a scalable technology that might actually be able to hold 10,000, 100,000, 1 million people, that can really facilitate growth. So that's kind of like where the idea came from. And how
that's the definition of creativity. You take all these different parts and you put them together in a way that's never been done before, and there you have the birth of this new thing. And one of my bucket lists, not bucket lists and fun things I want to do before I kick the bucket, but things I karmically want to, just feel responsible. And it's getting this technology, a meditation technology, out to all the world. And we've been, working with it. And I have a really good feeling about this, that this may be the way to really spread this in schools and just all over the planet, because most of our cultures do not have any kind of training about interior practice. We live in the exteriors, and how in the heck I couldn't do it anymore.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, Todd, this has been super. Okay. And I've gotten to watch you over the last few years and get to know you more and spend time with you. And I just feel it just feels like you're right in the middle of your vocation, that calling out the universe does to us sometimes when we know what we're supposed to be doing, and you're dealing with something that's, it's just so big, and the potential is so extraordinary. So I just want to really honor you for that, and your intelligence, and your presence, and your depth comes through for me in this conversation. And the last thing, this thing is available. People are using it now, so everybody's watching this can go to the internet or click on the link or whatever we have here as we edit this thing, and go there and be part of it. And it also seems like it's like the times that we live in, it's very evolutionary. In other words, this thing is growing by the week. And as we go and we meditate and we participate, we're actually being part of that, and we're helping to grow and establish this thing. So I think it's fantastic. And is there any kind of like last, thing you'd like to say for people that are listening to this, or just anything you need to say?
Yeah, well, first, thank you guys for all the work that you're doing. I want to really honor bringing these technologies into the world, and attempting to really kind of name this spiritual technology movement, which is certainly happening. I think it's really important. And at the end of the day, I think that if you're listening to this, you're probably already on your path, and you've probably already thought about these things for a long time. And I know that I have too. And I just want to get across the feeling of hope, that there's so many problems on this planet and this world, and it's a really challenging situation that we seem to be living in as a global culture. However, I know I at least have crossed a bridge in terms of seeing and feeling that there is real, genuine opportunities for transcendent changes to happening, like even in our lifetimes. It's not something that we may see. Like, we're really at a critical point. It really is a tipping point or a shift or something that that we are experiencing, and technology, is playing a part in that, and an important part. And we should not run away from it. So many of us get stressed out by the phones and the computers and the internet connection and the waves that are running around this planet now from these technologies. And yes, they are affecting us. And there's the impulse to kind of want to go into a mountain somewhere and meditate and just get away from it all. And I get it. I get that sometimes too. But at the end of the day, this isn't going anywhere. And so, the best thing that we can do is to go into it and infuse a higher level of consciousness, into technology itself, and actually say yes to it, and go in there and do the best job we can with what the world is showing and evolving for us. And actually, if we do that, we get to a feeling of real hope that we have a choice of what it is that we're producing, and the fact that this content and mindfulness and meditation is now like mainstream news is showing us that we have an opportunity to do something extraordinary. So I leave you with that feeling of hope, and say yes to this, and go off, do your retreats and go into the mountains when you need to. I certainly do, and we need that too. It's a matter of both. But saying energetically a big welcoming of technology and spirituality, a melding of these two wonderful things, might be the very thing that kind of gets us to where we all want to go. Yeah. So that's kind of the end of the day what I'd like to say.
Yeah, and I just came to me, and I want to do this in my life, but you can, get the link and put it on your Facebook page, or, put it on your website and say, oh, by the way, if you want to go meditate with a bunch of other people all around the world, and just spread it that way. It's a big thing, so it can just kind of be a movement, something that virally catches on. So, yeah, use it, tell people about it, send out an email to your friends, and hook up in Amplifield field space to meditate together, and it brings our hearts and minds, and it's very powerful.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, so deep bow, my friend, deep bow, and great appreciation of what you're doing. Thank you, Javi, and thank you, Pam and Louis, for doing this up behind the scenes. And everyone who's watching this, go check it out and do some meditating, and I think it'll help you establish an ongoing transformational path and practice, which is really what needs to happen if we're going to grow into what we need to be. So
thank you.
God bless.
Thanks, Javi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. So hi, everybody. Todd Jason here. And again, really excited to be part of the Spiritual Technology Summit with Pam and John. And we are here to introduce one of these spiritual technologies that I have been helping to facilitate and bring into the world over the past year. And it's called the Amplifield. And the Amplifield, if you're looking at the screen here, is a application that connects you with a global community of people who meditate and share intentions together. And it's exciting because the Amplifield is, I'm not just a participant in this series, but this app will also play a part in the Spiritual Technology Summit that Pam and John are so beautifully hosting. So more on that in a moment. And I want to give you a very brief tour of what this is, and also let you know that while we are terming this as an application, that usually connotes that this is available in the app stores, which it will be very soon. But the Amplifield is still very much in what's called a beta or prototyping phase. And so if you want to check it out, you can go to the URL, www.amplifield.com, and see it for yourself. It's free. It's very easy to log in. And as you're going to see in a moment, it's also super exciting what we're doing here. So as I said, this is just the homepage, and you can just read a little bit about what this app and what this technology is here to do. As you'll see here, we have a listing of a synchronized event. And one of the exciting things about what we're doing with the Amplifield is harnessing energy and harnessing meditation experiences together. So we do these consistent synchronized meditation events that we'll talk about. And then there's just, some basic stuff about the Amplifield here. But the most important thing is let's enter it. So let's go into the Amplifield, which is very easy to do. So you just click this enter Amplifield. And as we kind of go in here, you are going to see, as it loads up, a very interesting little page that in a moment is going to show a globe. There it is. Okay. So what we're looking at here is what we believe a very next generation technology that aims to connect human beings in the digital realm in a way that really hasn't been done before. So many of us are connected on Facebook and all these social media realms. I mean, Facebook recently hit 1 billion people in one day. So technology is connecting us. However, it's really important to think about, how we want to be connected as a human family in technology. Is it just by sharing what we had for lunch? Or do we want to do other things? Do we want to actually raise the frequency together of humanity and of the planet by using this digital realm and infusing it with the qualities that we hold so dear, like love and compassion and mindfulness and meditation practices? So the Amplifield is a exploration into the idea of how we can use the connectivity, the connective fabric of this internet, and raise the frequency. So what we're looking at here is an app that does that. And as you're going to see right now, up here, you're going to see it says online. It says 36. So that means that right now, in this moment, as I'm doing this recording, there are 36 people in the world logged in. And we see this globe here, which is kind of a 3D rendering of where people are logged in. So we can see these little dots. I don't know how clear it is on your screen, but there's people in Europe, there's people in America, there's people in South Africa, Australia, a few people, New Zealand, etc., that are currently logged into the Amplifield right in this very moment. And I'm doing this recording on a Monday morning, and so people are using this app to feel this connection, and we're going to talk about some of the features in a moment. On the left here, we see a stream, and on the top it says, "My intention right now is." So if I wanted to, write an intention, which I could, it would go into this stream. And this is kind of, like I said, a next generation intention stream where people are putting in intentions for what they want for themselves, for their families and loved ones, and for the world. So for example, Frank Seth, 22 minutes ago from Auckland, New Zealand, wrote, to reconnect with the community after an absence. Okay. Mr. Nick wrote, to gain clarity about how to live. Karen Toth wrote an hour ago, to have a warm house and open heart. And so you see, these are just intentions. And, there have been, over 10,000 intentions put into the stream in the last few months. So people are really using this intention stream. And one of the coolest things about this is that, like like the Facebook like button, the Amplifield has something similar, but it's more relevant to what we're trying to do here. And it's an amplify button. So let's take Frank Seth's example to reconnect with the community after an absence. And I want to amplify his intention, meaning that I want to actually add my energy and be in support of Frank's intentions. Then I simply click amplify. And what it does is the app actually draws a line. You just saw a lot of movement on the globe. But what it does is it draws a line from my node on the globe where I am to Frank's. Now he's all the way in New Zealand. And it then kind of does this little kind of radar around it, which is kind of using our imagination in this digital world to say, hey, you know, I'm adding energy to his intention. And I can scroll through and I can actually continue to amplify people's intentions. So I just amplified Mr. Nick's, you know, to gain clarity about how to live. And you see, you know, Mr. Nick is in Germany, and it just kind of amplified his intention. So this is one of the really cool things about this Amplifield. It's in a lot of ways kind of a next generation social network. And when you first come on here, that's kind of what you see is like, all right, there's this intention stream and you can amplify people's intentions and people amplify yours. And, you know, when you scroll here, you know, 3 hours ago, Brian Wolfe wrote, I intend that I am continually open to gaining wisdom about myself and the beautiful world around me. You know, and 11 people have amplified that intention. And now 12 because I just did it. So we really are supporting each other in this way. And it's obviously very relevant to this summit that you're in, a spiritual technology. That's what this is. This is a technology that is fostering connectivity and spirituality. So the other thing that's very, very important about the Amplifield, so this is just like the first thing that you see here, but it is also built as a utility to help you meditate and practice mindfulness. And so what we have is a library of music. Okay, so right here it says in the upper right, playing, and then there's a drop down that says supercharge. That's the name of the track that I currently have playing. Now, I don't have this on right now because I'm doing a recording on my computer. But if I did press play, this music track would play. And if I open up this library, you'll actually see that there's quite a bit of music tracks in here. And actually, almost all of these tracks have been provided by I Awake, by John and Pam, because of our friendship and my belief in I Awake having some of the best binaural beat and brainwave entrainment music out there. And so what we're doing here, and again, being in beta mode, but the point is that we can fill this library with all kinds of audio technologies, music, mantras, guided meditations, anything we really want that can serve as a repository for you to come on here and meditate. And I'll show you how you can do that in a moment. So the Amplifield is also a place where you can listen, you know, to some of your favorite music. You can, you know, get Jack Kornfield meditations. You'll see here Tara Brach. You know, we have all kinds of incredible meditation teacher recordings on here that you can listen to. So that's another really important feature of the Amplifield. You'll also notice when you come on here that it says room, and then underneath it says Earth Love. Okay, so if I click on that area, I just want to explain this briefly because what we are trying to get across and what we are building out right now is the idea that we can have separate rooms on this app, or separate fields is actually the new way that we're going to be calling it. So right now, when you first log in, and where we are right now, is kind of this global room. So it's everybody, because you know this is in the very beginning, and we have 8,000 or 9,000 total users that have signed in. So it's not millions of people yet. So it's okay to log into the global room, and it's not an overwhelming experience to see 37 people on there and the intentions that are on there. But as this grows, we will create separate rooms or fields that have various purposes or even various frequencies associated with them. So this is important because, you know, as you come on here and you look at it, you'll see that there's the flow room, which is geared for a place where you want to connect with people that are in a flow state or that are writing and creating or working. This is a great use case for the Amplifield. People spend all day having the Amplifield open in their browser while they're working. We have a temple, which is a place to pray. And we have a bliss room. And actually, for this summit, we will have a specific room or field for a lot of the audio technologies that you will be experiencing during this summit that Pam and John are facilitating. So we will be using the Amplifield to get across some of these technologies. And it's useful because you will be connected with all the other people in this summit at the same time, in real time. And you'll be able to see where they are on the globe, and you'll be able to share intentions with them. So again, just get your head wrapped around and your heart wrapped around what this is. This is really, like I said, a next generation way of connecting with people. And having these different fields and rooms is going to be very useful as this grows, while also integrating a lot of the music tracks and guided meditations and spiritual related technologies and content in your library. So that's the very general kind of thing that's going on in the Amplifield, and you'll learn more about this. And when you start using it, I encourage you to play with it. Like, click on the buttons, see what music is there, see what rooms are there, and meditate on here. Add an intention, amplify other people's intentions. You'll start to get a feel for what this is all about. Now, in order to use this as a utility, to actually meditate, which is one of the main things that we are hoping to accomplish with this, you can simply click Start Session at the bottom, or this meditating man or woman icon, and this opens up a tab that allows you to set an actual meditation session for yourself. So in this case, you can choose the room. So we'll just choose the global room, the main room, and then you could choose an audio track. So I'm going to choose iWake Technologies Resonance, and then I can put an intention into the field. And let's say my intention today is loving kindness, which is a good intention. And then I can set a timer. And let's say I want to meditate for 21 minutes. So what will happen if I click start, and again, you can do this on your phone or your iPad, but if you click start, what happens is a counter times down, and then a bell goes off, and voila, now I am in a meditation session. And my timer is down here, and all the interactivity that happens on the globe in terms of people adding in intentions and amplifying kind of goes away, because we want to provide a silent, sacred space for you to be able to meditate and use this. So another great tool of the Amplifield. And then there's all other kinds of things happening on here. One of the main things that we do on here is run these synchronized meditation events. And I show that to you from the homepage. And this is a way that we come together as a community to really harness the energy of what this is all about. And so we will be doing that as part of the Spiritual Technology Summit with Pam and John. And I encourage you to join those sessions as we do them together. So that's how you do a meditation session. And we invite you to come back on the Amplifield and start a session, and also let us know how it works for you. Like I said, this is very much in a beta or prototype phase. So we're early in our development, and it's really important that we get feedback from all the users that come on here and play with the Amplifield. So as you're in this Spiritual Technology Summit and you're joining in to the specific field or room that we have allocated for this conference, use the Amplifield. Join one of our global synchronized meditation events where hundreds or thousands of people come together at the very same moment to meditate and pray. It's really, really powerful. And let us know how it works. There is a lot more that I could share about this, but again, I think, leaving some of it for your own exploration. When you click on someone's name, for example, you can pull up their profile and you can see how many minutes they've been online and how many intentions they put in. You can even send them a message. So there is a lot more here that you can play with and explore. And again, this is just the beginning of what we're doing. This is rapidly expanding this idea. The notion of creating a platform that connects us through meditation and mindfulness practice is certainly hot and trendy right now, and is quite surprising for a lot of us who have been working in this field for a long time. So it's really important we keep the authenticity and the subjectivity of the practices themselves, while also allowing the technology to flower and hold the energy and space of what we're doing. So that is our general intention with the Amplifield. And I'm excited to be part of this conference with you guys, and excited to watch you explore the Amplifield, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this all wants to unfold in 2016 and beyond. So have a wonderful day, and I will speak to you soon.